show. My name is Christina Previtt. I am one of 2 lead faculty for modern management of the older adult. We have 3 courses in the geriatrics division. We have our Essential Foundations 8-week online course, we have our Advanced Concepts online course, and we have our live course. Our next live course is in Asheville, North Carolina in October, and we are starting up our 8-week online course next week, September 2nd, for Essential Foundations. So if you guys are interested in upping your Geri PT game, I encourage you guys to check out one of our live course options or jump in online because we would love to have you. And the course is almost sold out, which is really great because it just means we're getting more and more people interested in Geri PT, and that is extremely exciting. Today, what I thought we would go over is how to objectively measure strength in older adults. This is a big component of our Essential Foundations course, and it's probably the part where a lot of individuals struggle because we have to have some sort of metric, but it's kind of hard oftentimes with older adults to kind of figure out what we want to do in terms of objectively measuring strength. But what I want to challenge you with is, how do we know if a person is getting stronger if we don't have an objective measure of strength? And I would argue that almost all PTs who are working with older adults don't actively look at their strength numbers on a consistent basis. So we're really missing the boat with this if we aren't thinking about how to get a measure of strength. And this is going to be slightly different than some of our geriatric outcome measures that are going to be looking at functional capacity. And there's pros and cons for both, and there's definitely needs for both, but a 30-second sit-to-stand test, while it is assessing some lower extremity strength, is not seeing what the increase in quad strength increase has been. And we know traditionally that manual muscle testing can be extremely poor indicators of overall body strength and is extremely objective, and then there's a lot of wiggle room, all of those types of things. But we don't need to go into that. Today, I wanted to actually go through 5 or 6 different ways for us to objectively measure strength as a whole and within session. If you are listening to the podcast, you are not going to see me fumble with this whiteboard. If you are watching me on Instagram, you're going to see this whiteboard in reverse. And if you're watching me on Facebook, you're going to see this in the real direction that the whiteboard is supposed to go. So I'm just going to apologize in advance, but I'm going to be walking through all of these. So, all right, here we go. So we have 4 main ways that we can see, at least objectively or somewhat subjectively, a measure of strength. The first one that we're going to talk about is a 1 rep max. And so stick with me here. A lot of people say there's no way that I'm getting my 85-year-old client to do a 1 rep max. But I would argue that sometimes you're doing a 1 rep max on the first day without realizing it. So if you have an individual who takes a ton of effort to do a body weight sit to stand, you are essentially getting them to do a 1 rep max. It was safe for them to complete it in your assessment, and you're getting a good indicator that this individual is probably 1 rep max living and is going to be a really good candidate for a structured exercise program. For some of my private practice PTs, you might not be doing a 1 rep max test first day, especially if there's a lot of pain and that's a primary driver for a person coming to see you, but definitely getting some indication of a 1 rep max is going to be extremely important. I've had individuals who are in their late 70s who are on a wait list for a joint replacement. I'm in Canada, we have wait lists, who have had to do 1 rep max goblet squats to a bench. And they were completely fine and were extremely proud of themselves for being able to lift 25 or 30 pound dumbbells up off a seat, which is really exciting. But when it comes to the literature, we know that a 1 rep max is the best and most objective measure, gold standard in regards to knowing the amount of force development and the amount of external load that a person can move in a variety of movements. For most individuals, an estimated 1 rep max is going to be a more appropriate measure of objective strength. And what do I mean by an estimated 1 rep max? That is getting an individual to either go up and up and up until they hit a heavy 3 a heavy 5, and what that means is that an individual either cannot lift it off the ground, cannot stand up anymore against that external load. They volitionally tell you that they can't go up anymore, whether because of pain, function, or just the mental preconception that they can't do it, or a change in body mechanics that makes you feel like they are no longer going to be safe completing any more additional load. And that's outside of the optimal over perfect, but more seeing a bunch of common faults in different movements and, you know, kind of doing that cost benefit and saying, you know, this is probably not safe anymore. We're going to use whatever the previous set was for your estimated 1 rep max. So then from there, if we get a person who does a 5 rep max for you, how do we actually work backwards? And this is probably where we get a lot of questions in the MMOA course, is around how to do this so that we put it actively into our treatment plans. And so I'm going to show you guys the bottom of this. So an example, if you have a person who is doing a modified goblet squat sit to stand, so coming from a bench, standing up with a dumbbell, and you find that they can do 20 pounds for 5 repetitions. You're going to say that is their 5 rep max. So 20 pounds is their 5 rep max. We know that roughly a person can do 87% of their 1 rep max for 5. And I didn't just pull that number out of my bum. There is a lot of charts and apps that you can use. There's actually a 1 rep max calculator app that you can use that does this math for you. But I think it's really important that you get an idea around the what we know about objective strength measures. So if we know that a person can complete approximately 13% more from their 5 rep max to their 1 rep max, then you're going to divide 20 by 0.87. That's going to give me an estimated 1 rep max of 23 pounds. So now we have an objective measure of overall body strength at 23 pounds for their squat. Now, what happens if, okay, you do that, that's great. Now, what do I do for their next session that we're going to do squats? Say, okay, well, I know that they're doing 23 pounds. What we know is that we're not going to get a person to work at their 1 rep max over and over and over again. It's the whole reason behind 1 rep max living is that completing, I don't know if any of you guys listening to this have done a 1 rep max, but it is extremely tiring. It is off the charts in terms of effort, and it shouldn't be repeatable. You should not be able to take your 1 rep max and do an EMOM with it, for example. That means that you're not actually working at your true 1 rep max, you're working at a sub-max load. So then, your next day you're like, I'm gonna do 3 sets of 3. Going back to the 1 rep max chart, oh my gosh, look at me struggling with this whiteboard. Okay, going back to this 1 rep max chart, we know that a person can complete 3 reps at approximately 93% of their 1 rep max. So if I take 23 and now instead of dividing it, I multiply it by 0.93, I'm gonna get 21.39 pounds. Now, going back to my discussion before, I cannot do a 3 rep max over and over and over again. So I'm not gonna get this client to do 21 pounds 3 times for 3 repetitions. It's just not likely to happen. So I'm gonna take it down a little bit. So I'm actually probably gonna take that 20 pounds and use that as my objective measure target for the day. So now I'm working at a training load. So I'm taking their 3 rep max, going slightly underneath it, and I'm getting volume to accumulate. So what ends up happening is that you're getting this strength adaptation by working in those sub-maximal ranges, just like you would for an endurance athlete who's trying to increase their speed. You kind of work under, and accumulate volume so that you drive strength adaptation, and then the next time you do a 5 rep max test, they may be able to do 25 pounds, and now you have an objective measure that their strength has increased from baseline to whenever you were doing that reassessment, which generally tends to be at that 4 to 6 week mark. And it's the reason why our strength blocks are usually 4 to 6 weeks, because eventually that fatigue accumulates over an extended amount of time. We deload the athlete and then we retest, and we can do the same thing with older adults. Okay, so those are two very objective ways for us to measure intensity. What about in between sessions? I am not doing estimated rep maxes every single time a person comes in. That's exhausting, and my client probably wouldn't appreciate that, especially if pain is a primary driver, like I said. So then what are two ways within session that I'm objectively measuring their strength? And one of them is going to be using rate of perceived exertion, and the other one is going to be looking at their biomechanics. So in between sessions, if I have a person, especially somebody who is extremely deconditioned, their 1 rep max is going to change so quickly. In the fitness athlete world, I call this newbie gains. So this is where I'm extremely jealous of a person who has never done CrossFit or lifting before, because with a training block or with a physio exercise program, there's going to be strength adaptations that are going to be driving over time, but you're also going to see a learning, motor control, and neuromuscular efficiency training happen, which is going to drive strength adaptations a lot quicker. So I may be testing their 5 rep max instead of 4 to 6 weeks, I might be doing it every 2 to 3 weeks. But I'm also going to notice probably fairly significant strength increases at the very beginning. Especially if you're going through an acute bout of deconditioning, because oftentimes you're gonna have that motor unit recruitment that's there. It's just gone through a period of withdrawal. And so what I'm gonna do is use rate of perceived exertion. I learned a lot when I started putting this into my exercise sessions or physio sessions with my older adults, because often what I would think would be an RPE 10, they would tell me is an RPE 2. Or what I would think was an RPE 2, they would tell me is an RPE 8. And this isn't going to be as directly applicable to amount of force production, because we know that there are so many things that come into rate of perceived exertion. Things like sleep quality, stress, time of day, timing of medications for individuals with chronic, especially neurological conditions, when you're using pain medications, if you're using pain medications, alcohol consumption, caffeine, diuretics, all those types of things are going to come in and be involved in rate of perceived exertion in that session. And so if you have a person who was doing really, really well and hit that 5 rep max at 20 pounds, and then the next day they're struggling with a bodyweight squat, there may be a lot of lifestyle related factors that are feeding into that, and using RPE within that session is going to be appropriate, and you're still going to get the stimulus that you want within that day. The last one that you can use within session is biomechanics. We have this amazing quote that we put into our course from Dale Avers around rest. And you should know that by the end of the session, the set that you're doing with your clients, if you're doing a set of 10, by the time they get to 8, 9, and 10, they should have a noticeable change in their movement pattern. And what do I mean by that? When a person is fatigued, what is going to happen? You're going to see signs of cardiovascular intensity. So you're going to see an increase in breathing. You're going to see a starting of perspiration. You're going to see changes in biomechanics, potentially into faulty movement patterns. You're going to see a change in speed. If you are seeing a person who is completing an exercise exactly the same at rep 1 and rep 10, it might mean that you're actually underdosing them. And again, with pain, that's going to add another layer of things to consider. But generally, we should be able to objectively look at how a person is performing a movement and see if we're getting the RPE that we're looking for. You should have a person, sweating. We made this joke at our last meeting, make PT sweaty again, where even with our older adult clients, we should be able to get their heart rate up in session with strength training or aerobic training, balance training, or all three. And so if you're going to be doing stuff within session, you should be able to see a noticeable change or some marker or indicator of fatigue while you are completing those strength sessions. So those are two ways. One other way that Mitch Babcock brought up a really great PT on Ice in the fitness athlete division is finishing off with an AMRAP set. And this is a really great thing that you can do in your older adult sessions as well. So if you have a person who's doing 3 sets of 5, and they're doing 10 pounds, they're doing elevated sit to stands, and then you say, listen, we are going to finish and do one more set, then you're gonna be done for today. I want you to do as many squats with this 15-pound weight as you can. And then once you feel like you can't do another one, you couldn't possibly stand up another squat, you're done for today. And then you're gonna educate about delayed onset muscle soreness. And so if you have a person who you're doing 3 sets of 5 and then all of a sudden they bang out like 13, 14, 15 squats, that was an underdosing. If they get to 6 in their max set, you're probably getting pretty close to, that good measure of intensity, and you can have an idea that you were at the right measure for that day. And so that's another great way to put into your toolbox. It also, if you were underdosing them the remainder of their session, and then they you get that last set and they get 15, then at least you get one really heavily dosed set that's going to drive those neurological and hypertrophic adaptations to strength training. All right, I hope you guys found that helpful. Let me know, do you think that you've done a really good job? Is there stuff that you can still implement around objectively measuring strength for your older adults? Do you document that? How are you incorporating these strength training sessions or these objective measures of strength in your PT exercise sessions to make sure that you are actually giving your client the stimulus that they need in order to drive adaptation? So give those a try. Tell me which ones you use. And if you guys have any questions, as always, please let me know. And I will see you all on Monday. I'm going to take over for the pregnancy and postpartum. So if you guys are interested in jumping into our Modern Management Essential Foundations course, we start next Wednesday, and we are almost at capacity, so I encourage you guys to sign up. Bye.
Hey, thanks for tuning in to the PT on Ice Daily Show. If you enjoyed this content, head on over to iTunes and leave us a review. And be sure to check us out on Facebook and Instagram at the Institute of Clinical Excellence. If you're interested in getting plugged into more ICE content on a weekly basis while earning CEUs from home, check out our virtual ICE online mentorship program at ptonice.com. While you're there, sign up for our Hump Day Hustling newsletter for a free email every Wednesday morning with our top 5 research articles and social media posts that we think are worth reading. Head over to ptonice.com and scroll to the bottom of the page to sign up.